Imagine being 25 years old and sitting across from someone on a first date, feeling like an absolute fraud. While most people my age seem to navigate the world of dating and social gatherings with a natural, effortless grace, I was drowning in a sea of my own nerves. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was sitting in a dimly lit cafe, and the silence between us was so heavy, it felt like it was physically crushing the air out of my lungs. My brain was a frantic static, desperately searching for anything, a fact, a joke, a comment about the weather, to fill the void. But there was nothing, just a blank, cold wall of panic. I wasn't antisocial. Around my childhood friends, I was fine. But the moment I stepped into the world of dating, especially starting so late at 25, I felt like I was playing a game where everyone else had been given the rule book at birth, and I was just now trying to learn the language. I used to think charisma was this magical, innate talent. You either had it, or you were destined to be the person standing awkwardly by the punch bowl. But then, everything changed. I hit a breaking point, where the pain of loneliness finally outweighed the fear of failure. I realized that socializing isn't a gift, it's a mechanical skill. It is a learnable, repeatable process. Once I understood this, I went from a guy who couldn't hold a 2-minute conversation without a mind freeze to someone who people now describe as naturally magnetic. I didn't just get better. I improved so much that most people assume I've been a social butterfly since I was 5 years old. In this video, I'm going to share the exact 5 techniques I used to bridge that 10-year gap in social experience, almost overnight. But more importantly, I'm going to share the one specific realization, a single mystery lesson that shifted my perspective so radically that I never felt awkward in a conversation ever again. Stick around until the end, because that one insight is the key that unlocks everything else. Let's go back to those early days of my late bloomer dating journey. My biggest issue was what I call the interview date. Because I was so terrified of silence, I would hammer my dates with surface-level facts. Where do you work? How many siblings do you have? Where did you go to school? It was a checklist, not a connection. I thought that by being a good talker, I had to keep the information flowing, but I was wrong. The first and most important technique I learned is to stop trying to be the interesting one and start making them feel like the interesting one. The people who are truly the best at conversations are rarely the ones who talk the most. Instead, they're the ones who make you do most of the talking while making you love every single second of it. They treat whatever you say as if it's the most fascinating thing they've heard all day. When you make this shift, something magical happens. When you ask genuine follow-up questions and reference something they said 10 minutes ago, they walk away feeling seen, heard, and important. Your brain naturally files people like that under, "This person is amazing to talk to." You want to see them again because they provided a space where you felt interesting. The foundation of all great conversation is this: stop trying to perform and start being genuinely curious. This leads directly into the second major hurdle I had to overcome, the internal monologue. Have you ever been in a conversation where, while the other person is talking, you aren't actually listening? Instead, you are in your own head, half listening and half preparing your next sentence. You're so worried about what to say next that you miss the actual gold the other person is giving you. When they finally stop talking, the response you give feels slightly fake or disconnected because it wasn't built on what they actually said. It was built on what you were thinking 3 sentences ago. The fix is to stop preparing and start listening for dropped threads. People constantly drop little details into their speech that they are waiting for you to pick up. If someone says they went on a hiking trip but almost didn't go, do not just say, "Oh, I love hiking too." That's a conversation killer because it pulls the spotlight back to you. Instead, pick up the thread they dropped. "Wait, you said you almost didn't go. What happened?" By picking up that detail and handing it back to them, you prove you are actually present. You don't need to come up with something brand new. The best thing to say is almost always hidden in the last thing they just said. Before we move into the techniques that help you move past the surface level, I want to take a quick second to ask you to hit that like button. It might seem like a small thing, but it actually tells the YouTube algorithm that this story and these lessons are worth sharing with others who might be struggling with the same social anxiety I had. It directly helps the channel grow and allows me to keep making these deep dive videos for you. Thank you for being part of this community. Now, once you've learned to listen for those threads, you need to know how to go one layer deeper. This is where a conversation goes from forgettable small talk to addictive connection. Every answer someone gives you has two levels. The surface level, which is just facts and information, and the real level, which is the feeling or the story behind it. Most people stay on the surface. If someone says they've been really busy, the surface response is, "Yeah, me too, work is crazy." That conversation is a dead end. Instead, ask a question that targets the feeling. Is it the good kind of busy or the draining kind? Suddenly, you are in a real conversation. If someone says they lived in Barcelona, don't just say, "Oh, I hear it's beautiful." Ask, "What made you choose Barcelona of all places?" The word why, or any variation of it, is the key that unlocks the deeper layer. These questions invite people to share things that actually matter to them. When they do, they feel a genuine connection to you, because, frankly, most people never bother to ask. However, even with these skills, there's one scenario that used to absolutely terrify me: the reset. Picture this. You're at dinner. The energy is great. And then one person leaves to go to the bathroom. Suddenly, the group dynamic is gone, and you're left one-on-one in a vacuum of silence. It feels like starting from zero. For a long time, I would try to desperately cling to whatever the group was just talking about, but it always felt forced and awkward. The secret I learned is to take total responsibility for the reset. Don't try to bridge the old conversation. Instead, acknowledge that the energy has shifted and just ask a clean, new question. You can literally say, "Actually, I've been meaning to ask you," or, "So, what's been going on with you lately outside of work?" This releases the tension. You aren't waiting for the other person to come back to save you. You are choosing to start a fresh mini conversation. By taking ownership of that silence, you project a level of confidence that is incredibly attractive. You are deciding that the old topic is over and a new, better one is beginning. But what happens when a topic just naturally runs out of steam? This is my fifth technique. Never let a topic die. Redirect it. We've all seen it. The sentences get shorter, the nods get slower, and you know the end is coming. Most people just let the silence sit there until it gets weird. The skill here is to use what was just said as a bridge to something new. Almost everything someone mentions contains a thread you can pull later. If they mentioned earlier that they wanted to travel more, and your current topic about work is dying, you can simply say, "You mentioned earlier you wanted to travel more. Where would you go first?" It's a smooth transition that brings new energy, without making it feel like a jarring restart. And if you don't have a thread, it's perfectly okay to say, "Okay, completely different question," and pivot to something you're genuinely curious about. A pause isn't a problem. It's just a door to a new topic. When I started dating at 25, I felt like I was broken. I felt like the socially awkward label was a permanent part of my identity. But by practicing these 5 things, making them the interesting one, listening for drop threads, going a layer deeper, taking responsibility for resets, and redirecting dying topics, I realized that I could create a feeling of connection with almost anyone. And that brings me to the mystery lesson I teased at the beginning. The one realization that changed my life forever is this: people will forget what you said. They might even forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. I spent years worrying about having the perfect words or the most impressive stories. I thought I needed to be a performer. But the moment I realized that my only job in a conversation was to make the person across from me feel seen, heard, and worth my attention, the pressure vanished. When you stop focusing on your own performance and start focusing on providing value to the person you are talking to, your anxiety has nowhere to live. You aren't trying to be charismatic anymore. You are simply being present. That shift in perspective is what took me from a late-blooming, awkward 25-year-old to someone who can navigate any room with ease. It wasn't magic. It was a choice to treat conversation as a gift I give to others rather than a test I have to pass. If you found this helpful and you want to take these skills even further, especially in the context of romantic attraction, you're going to want to check out my next video. We're going to be diving into how to take these foundational skills and specifically apply them to dating in a way that builds deep, genuine chemistry. That video is titled, Master the Art of Conversation with Women. I'll see you over there.